Welcome to Redbeard Radio. I'm Brian Keith, and today we are talking about culture and your culture as a solo business entrepreneur, or perhaps you have a small team. And a lot of us start off, and our plan is more hours equals more money. And we're right, mostly, which is why we're still in business 3, 5, 10 years later. But there's more to building a healthy culture than working as many hours as we can without falling over dead. And we're talking today with Dobbin Buck, who is, among other things, the co-owner of GetUWired out in Georgia. He has a team of almost 50 people. And if you follow Dobbin on Instagram or really anywhere else, you see he has a culture of, I think, basically fly fishing. That's apparently all you do, right, Dobbin?
Well, I would say that's a goal. I'm not quite there yet.
I'm pretty sure. Well, I've been fishing all of once and didn't get anything. So I see you on Instagram and I go, that guy spends a lot of time fishing. This is fantastic. To be a technically adept person running a team of 50 people and just out fishing all the time, I feel like you know something about culture that I don't. So I'm looking forward in this interview to understand the story of how you got to a place with GetUWired where you have a culture where it's not just you, but you have the sort of the supportive. Well, weren't you the best place to work, something like that?
Yeah, we were
Didn't you win some award?
we are the top in the top five for our segment in Glassdoor, and we've been best places to work in Georgia several years running. We've won a lot of cultural awards over the year, outside magazines, um, best company culture a couple of years in a row recently, and just a bunch of them. So certainly we've been recognized and celebrated for that, and that's a really cool thing. It's a really cool thing for us as owners of the company, but I think it's even more
Mhm.
interesting for the people that have invested their lives and are members of the team. That's it says a lot that it reinforces that they made a great decision, a solid decision in the company that they've decided to dedicate a really huge part of their lives to.
Now, were you always this good at creating culture, or was there a shift at some point?
Definitely a shift. So we've been very cultural for, I would say, the last 9 or 10 years. What happened was that in hindsight, we were really flying by the seat of our pants. We were hiring people by instinct. Hey, this person sounds good. Let's hire them. We were trying to develop an interesting workplace and always tried to be friendly, but we really didn't have any programming around it. And then at a certain juncture, we really stopped what we were doing, took a look at our vision, which is our mission, our purpose, and our core values, and we redeveloped that. So it went from being some pithy stuff up on the wall to something that we really believed in and something that we would commit to operating by. And the leadership team, which is my business partners, Melissa Allen, Bobby Brown, and myself, took a first swing at it. And then we spent a full day with the team that we had in place back then, which I think we were somewhere between 10 and 15 people, maybe closer to 15 people. And we spent a full day working through particularly the core values for our team. And then that wasn't enough. So we took another day off of work to continue working on that. And for the most part, with the exception of the mission itself, all of that exists to this day, and we live by it. And so it with structuring that, then we had a roadmap for the types of people that we wanted to hire. Of course, if you're
Hmm.
operating by a set of core values, you hire to those core values. So then we developed our 11-part hiring process, which is pretty rigorous, and we stand by it. And out of that, we get people that are aligned uh, with our core values and the way that we would like to ideally operate. And so, at its core, that's where everything really started. And when people, the interesting thing about culture is people talk about culture and they'll be like, oh, we have a ping pong table, or we have this, or we have this thing that we get for our team in our headquarters or wherever they're operating out of. But Really, to me, the culture is something that's really more emotional, it's more spiritual, and it's
Mm.
more in alignment with how we feel about each other as a team, and almost equally as important, how we feel about our clients. So the core values extend deeper, they extend outside of the workplace family into the client base. And so, if we can operate on all cylinders in alignment with those ideals, that's when things really started moving along for us. And that's when real growth, all of the accolades, the awards, the things that people hear about started to manifest. And to this day, we're really operating in a similar fashion from when we started this crusade, with obviously some evolutions in method and form. So it's interesting.
Can you give us an example of one cultural thing that you guys do that is not normal?
Well, I don't like to think of ourselves as not normal, but actually, we are not normal. I'm very much not normal.
It's good to admit it out front. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the training that we do is pretty interesting. So, we have mindset training inside of the companies. Every Thursday, we
Really?
have a meditation session that occurs right after lunch that employees can option to participate in. Then, once a month, there's a full on training with some aspect of mindset and personal growth. There are leadership training classes that are going on every Tuesday for an hour for anybody, no matter what your station in the company is, to learn methodology of becoming a leader, of growing yourself professionally. We have quarterly team building events, which are generally very exciting.
Let's hold on here. Let's go back to that mindset training. You're telling me that the most junior person at Get You Wired has free access to mindset training every week.
Yes. And interestingly enough, I started it years ago when I came back from studying neurolinguistic programming with Richard
Mm.
Bandler, and really was getting into deeper into my meditation, self hypnosis, things like that. Not to get too deep or too weird in this conversation, but I started really seeing some benefits, and I was training my sales team with a variety of different tactics. And ultimately, I started experimenting with more employees in the company, and then I decided to make it a regular class. And it's where we would go in and do some guided meditation and then talk about different principles of being able to um, moderate or eliminate anxiety in the workplace. Ultimately, being able to
Whoa.
free ourselves from the um, the carrot that's dangled in front of us about, hey, if you perform this way, you're going to get this gift. It's about dispelling the illusion in the workplace and really being present in the moment, really being present on serving the moment and who we are interacting with at that time, absolutely doing our best and letting everything else fall away. And most of the time when we're suffering in the workplace, we're not being present. We're thinking about that we're not getting what we're deserving. We're thinking about a meeting we had an hour before that someone upset us. We're thinking about a meeting an hour in the future that we may not have all of our work done and we're not as prepared as we'd like to be for. Any number of different things cause us stress and anxiety, and then our family lives might come into the workplace too. We're worried about our
Mm.
children or our loved ones, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really about putting things into perspective, learning how to breathe and how to bring ourselves into the present moment, and absolutely just do the best with what we have in the capacity of what we're trying to serve at a given moment. So there's a lot of different techniques. There's a lot of um, different benefits to meditation. And meditation doesn't have to be where you bring out a Zafu and a Zabuton cushions and go into a 50-minute deep Zen meditation. Meditations can be something as simple as in your chair at your desk, or now everybody's working at home. some breathing exercise, and really regulating ourselves and getting ourselves to a baseline that says everything's okay. My focus right now is on this client or this coworker or this thing that I'm getting ready to do. And all I need to worry about right now, or not even worry about, all I need to do is to focus on being of service, the best service I can to this moment, and nothing else is important. So we worked on that, and that's continued to grow. And I no longer run the course. Another person at the company, April, currently runs it, and she does an amazing job and does a lot of hard work to bring great education and peace to our company.
That all sounds amazing. Have I told you about the time that I did a 10-day silent city meditation retreat?
No, you did a 10-day. How many hours a day did you meditate?
Roughly 10.
10 and 10?
Sitting in silence. You're supposed to be sitting down. To be fair, my first time I went, I was doing that, and I quit halfway through. The second time I went, when I succeeded the whole 10 days, whenever we went back to our rooms to go meditate in our rooms, to deal with my back pain, I just laid down on my bed and tried to let my back pain subside until the next time I had to report to the main meditation hall to sit in agony for another hour or two for 10 days.
That's a lot of meditation.
That's a different story. It was very educational. I got an intimate relationship with pain from that, from physical pain. Have I told you about the time that I was a hypnotist?
No.
I got to tell you that story too. Next time we see each other, I'll tell you some stories there. Short version, folks, is that pain is mostly in the mind. And if you or you let someone else into your brain, they can remove pain. It's crazy what you can do with hypnosis. Of everything you just said, Dobbin, it all sounds amazing. One thing you said is reduce or eliminate anxiety in the workplace. And I heard that and I thought, holy cow, I've been in business 10 years. The number of businesses I've had as clients that there was either some or a lot of anxiety, either some or all of the time, was all of them. That there's always some launch coming up. There's always some fire to put out. And this idea that you train your entire team, both internally and then I imagine it flows out into your work with clients. This idea of we're going to reduce or eliminate anxiety. How do you do that?
Well, mindset meditation would be one thing, but remember that that's a volunteer course that actually the majority of my team does not partake in. But as you develop leaders in the workplace, as we grow our team and we grow leaders within it, ultimately we operate within our core values. And we got to remember that work is important, our culture is important. All of this stuff that's sort of the wrapper around GetUWired is very important. I rely on it for my income and to care for my family. But when we can step back and understand that our workplaces, at least in my opinion, other people may have different opinions, but my opinion is that our careers and our workplace are vehicles to support the things that are most important to us in life, which are our personal pursuits, our families, fly fishing, all the things that that I enjoy or I embrace to take responsibility around. The workplace provides me with that. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have joy in the workplace. It doesn't mean that it doesn't help me to feel satisfied when I'm helping another small business succeed, all of that sort of thing. But the honest truth is that if I wasn't getting paid to do this, I would probably find a different way to serve my family and to serve humanity other than my what I do professionally. It doesn't mean I don't like it and everything. It means that at some level I have a transactional relationship with it. Okay. And so when I look at a team, and we have over 50 people, these are people with children, with families, with houses, with mortgages, with all sorts of things going on. And if you look at the amount that an average employee or team member dedicates to our company, they're in the workplace at least 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Most people are putting in extra work. In other words, they're finishing up their notes at night. Some people are hustling into the evening to be ready for the next morning because of, some initiative or something we have. When you break down statistically the hours that someone is investing in our company, and then if you were to compare it with their hobbies, their children, their eating and hygiene, their exercise, their anything in their life, you would see that on a weekly basis that they're hour for hour are putting more time into the workplace initiatives. Now, let's take it one step further. If that's the case, then there's this thing that's saying that I was put on this earth to spend the majority of my life working to make a living to support all these other things. Now, to me, when I hear that and I hear myself saying that, I feel like some sick individual created this formula at some point in history, and it's what we're living by, and we're sort of forced, in a manner of speaking, to work a certain amount of hours, make a certain amount of money, pay our taxes, blah 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 blah. And when I look at that, and I back up, and as an owner of the company, it's like, wow. We have all these expectations out of these individuals, but look at what they're trading. They're trading the lifeblood of their journey from A to B. A is birth, B is death. We could say A to Z, but this stuff moves so quick, we'll just use A to B. And so keeping that in perspective is pretty interesting. Like if you start getting annoyed with someone or something in a given day, remember that they've got a family. Remember that they're dedicating practically the biggest portion of their life to the company, and figure out a way to serve them. Generally, if there's a problem, it means that someone needs some help. It doesn't mean that someone needs to be lambasted or thrown down on. So it's a different approach. And with managers, it's really important that they are patient, that they take a approach of learning, training, and overcoming challenges, as opposed to being cruel or hard on someone that's struggling in the workplace. Now, there may come a point with people that they are not a good fit, that they are struggling too much, that quite frankly, their role or position isn't suitable for them. Then it's our responsibility to either find them a new place inside the company, or to help them find a place outside of the company in some cases. But generally everything should be done in the spirit of servitude. And I think when you're operating from that space, and you're truly operating from that space, not like you're just following the rule book, but you believe in it, that people feel it and they react accordingly,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And it has, I'm comparing what you're saying to some of the classes I took back in college when I was getting my business degree. And they said some of the same things like that, but the way when you're talking, I feel like you mean it, I guess. I feel like you mean it in a way that this is a practice, uh, a daily practice for you, and that responsibility. Well, I remember back when I was an employee, this was a while ago. I was an employee just out of college, and I was in sales, and I wasn't really, one of our clients was selling something that I didn't really morally feel was really virtuous. We're selling candy. And I thought, man, I'm using my talents, what I've been given, to go sell more candy. This doesn't feel great. Went to my boss, smart guy, said, hey, this doesn't feel great. And he said, I get what you're saying. And I asked him about his satisfaction. And he said that, well, he fed all the families of the dozens of people at his company. And so, yeah, he didn't get extra juice from selling candy for this one client, but that's not where his satisfaction came from. He was directly supporting dozens and dozens of children, wives, husbands, everything. And that left a mark, that his attention on what is important here. I really liked that. Yeah. So, Dobbin, for people who are listening to you and they're thinking, I need more of this in my life, did you read a book that put you on this path, or was it attending a training or a speech, or did you meet somebody? How did you get to this place where you're doing the servant leadership thing in a really serious way?
Sure. Now, I don't want to make the mistake of saying this is all Dobbin. I have amazing partners in the company, and we each play an equal role in um, expanding our own vision and our own collective efforts into the company. So through all of us, we're all readers, we're all students, and I travel and I meet a lot of people. So in the marketing world, I'm often learning from other people and taking great ideas and implementing them into our agency um, on the cultural aspect of it. I see things I like in other organizations, and I'll try to embody that. One book, though, to if you'd like me to mention a book that really
Oh,
had
yeah.
a pivotal impact on me, um, was Drive by Daniel H. Pink. When I first read it, and I've read it a couple times and resourced it many more times since my original reading. And I'm from a different generation, so I'm from a generation that predates the millennial architecture and the current architecture of amazing people. And so I came out of this workplace experience growing up that was really the school of hard knocks. If I didn't get my ass handed to me 3 or 4 times a day and wasn't, beaten into submission over the years into, what I became, uh, I was trained and groomed by people from a generation that predated my own. And so life moves on and generations come in. And so I was sort of this hard edged guy. And there came a point to where on our company surveys, I started to see that people were intimidated by me. And
Huh.
ultimately, you aren't going to be able to help someone breed goodwill, be effectively heard, or partner with people that are afraid of you or intimidated with you at some level. So I really didn't see myself as that person, but other people were. And anonymously, we're writing it into our employee surveys. And so I had to take a good hard
Wow.
look at that. And so I started talking to people. I started reading a lot, and the book Drive by Daniel H. Pink helped me to um, really shift the paradigm by which I operated, and it wasn't that difficult of a move. I just really needed to understand things. I didn't have a good mirror from myself looking back at myself. All I have is my own experience. So when I was able to look at myself through a different lens, and then effectively modify the way that I'm communicating with people, uh, the way that I'm respecting them, and really trying to allow more kindness and compassion to come through me professionally, things started to change. So that was a really good book. And, a lot of people pick on everybody's, by the way, everybody used to pick on millennials. Now the whole world are millennials. So now everybody's picking on Gen Z or something. I don't believe in picking on anybody. I think that anybody to be successful um, has to evolve with the way um, our nation or our world is evolving, or nobody's going to want to work with you. And so it's interesting. So that was, I had to have a really big shift in myself, and I still have to look at myself and play the tapes back at the end of the day with conversations I've had and everything, and where I need to. I might have to go in the next day and give an apology to someone, or say, oh, that didn't come
Mm.
across exactly as effectively as I would have liked it to be. It's about owning my own stuff and being as good a leader as I can. And that has a lot to do with compassion. But there's a lot of books on it. There's a lot. And another big thing, going back to the meditation, my daily meditation practice, the things I do to keep myself as stress-free and anxiety-ridden as possible, helps those emotions not to come through me abnormally, and someone have to bear the brunt of me having a rough day or something like that.
Yeah, it's keeping yourself clean, energetically clean, which
Yeah.
is it's taken me. I used to I'm in my late 30s now. In my 20s, I did this martial arts and sword fighting for a decade, and for a significant part of that, if you would have described me as someone who was a bit angry or had something to prove, I think you would have been right. And I was not. I didn't have good energetic hygiene as much as I do now, where I now pay a lot of attention to these things you're talking about your meditation. Are you dealing with your own stuff so you're not accidentally pushing some kind of energetic garbage, trauma, aggression, anything towards other people? And you could just be there and listen to them. Because if your heart is so loud, you can't even hear someone else. You can't listen to them appropriately. So I love your story, Dobbin. That's just beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. Another thing that came in is just keeping ourselves right sized. Sometimes people think because they
Mm.
own a business or they're at the top of the org chart in a company that they're better or more important than other people.
Hmm.
And I think that there's roles of authority, there's roles and positions that we have to take into consideration. But understanding that nobody is better than anybody else on this planet is a really important thing. And particularly, let's just take the planet out of it. Let's say in the workplace, anybody that's made it through our 10-part hiring process is in the company, is in there for a reason. They're meant to be a member of the team. And ultimately, any member of that team is just important to the team as I am. I have a different role than other people, but even at 50 people, this is interesting. In scalability and culture, at 50 people, one wrong hire can be devastating to the entire company, and one person leaving because they've had a bad experience can be devastating to the company. So it's really about hiring the right people and trying to keep them happy and motivated in their decision to join our team. And an important part of that is to make sure that as leaders that we're right sized, that the only difference in the company between me and someone else is I own the company, but it's I serve a different role, and their role is equally as important as mine on some level. It totally is. And these are things to pay close attention to.
You're reminding me of mountain climbing. My second time at Mount Rainier, I was leading a rope team. So I was a junior leader, not one of the participants who's just on a rope. And I'm not the climb leader who's controlling both the rope teams. So I'm in the middle. And before I went up, and I've been at Mount Rainier once before as just a participant on a rope team. And I asked a buddy of mine, I said, I'm not sure, like, how is this going to go? I was nervous. And he said, it'll be fine. And I said, but I had such a hard time my first time up, even keeping myself in one piece, maintaining my own hydration, eating whatever else. And my buddy said, it's all going to be fine. You're going to extend out into your team. It's going to be fine. Just trust me. And so I go, and I'm now responsible for these three people on my rope. Decisions I make determine whether they live or die, but also decisions they make determine whether I live or die. It's very much a team thing. You are literally roped in together while crossing crevasses where you could all fall in and just be dead. And this idea of the responsibility, yeah, it weighs sort of heavy, but also you're just together in this thing. And we were only on a rope between when we left high camp at like 10 p.m. on one night. We climb all the next day. We get back to high camp at 5 p.m. the next day or so. So we're on a rope less than 24 hours. But those 24 hours were so profound, even now, 5 years later now, that I remember the feeling for days afterwards. I look around me trying to check in on my three people and make sure they were okay. And be like, that I've been home for days now. They're not there anymore. But that feeling of responsibility, it was really, I just saw a note from one of them, one of my climbers. Her name's Kimber, and she was a junior climber at the time, but she's now a celebrated ice climber, sponsored athlete. And I see some of her posts, and I think, my goodness, Kimber's this such a shining star. And there she was on my rope team for this one moment when I got to be the old man on the mountain when she was a young climber just out of the climbing school. And now here she is, a complete just mountain goat of a climber with this feeling of responsibility. And we are very much all in this together, that we're just going to be constantly checking each other. And we're moving as this team, which I think that in our modern age, especially the not working in an office, for people who have had that, like your team has, we've lost some of this cohesion. We've lost some of this tribalism, good tribalism, healthy tribalism. And we're just sort of atomized. What can I get out of this relationship? What can I get out of this conversation? Instead of really that togetherness spirit that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's really, I think that's the challenge today, Brian, is with COVID. Um, I was not a fan of working from home. Before COVID, we were experimenting with it, and I was one of the holdouts. I really wanted
Mhm.
the majority of people to come into the office to have regular hours, and I was really putting my own stuff on the challenge because I needed to go into the office to be productive and everything. Well, I'll tell you what, since we've all been working from home, or the majority of us, I've started working from home over COVID, and I love working from home. I go in on Wednesdays for a leadership
Mhm.
team meeting, and generally I don't go in any other times. My wife, she goes into the office every day, probably to get away from me. But uh,
Smart woman.
yeah, and we live out in the woods on a trout stream, and the internet isn't so good here, so it's difficult when two of us um,
Right.
are working from the same space and making noise and using up bandwidth and all of that. So she's probably doing me a favor going in the office, and a few people choose to go in there, but it's been a real challenge to keep that together. And with our company meetings, we'll have 40 some people that'll show up on Zoom. And um, we've restructured our daily and weekly team meetings to have a little bit more togetherness, more fun time, and a team based orientation, and to where people get a little bit more of that. I don't know, personalized experience with the people that they work with, other than just here let's talk about this project, or so forth and so on. So we try and give everybody a little bit of breathing room and room to get to know each other better, and that continues to be a real struggle. And the other thing for small businesses that's a real challenge is that you have people working from home, you maybe don't have all of that cultural glue or something that a hard headquarters has. So when people are in working from home mode, there's a lot of recruiters out there. There's people trying to hire people all over the place. I'm
Mhm.
hiring people as quickly as I can. We have a full-on initiative for hiring different roles, and it has not been easy. Less people are signing up for job positions, and less people are making it through our hiring process. So it's a real challenge in this day and age. So when you get a hold of someone that is in alignment with the company, they're really valuable, because it's hard to replace people. It's hard to get new people. I don't know
Mm.
if a lot of people are staying home and not working, or what the scenario is right now, but we live in a sort of a rural situation up here, an hour north of Atlanta, and so we try and hire all the way down pretty much to Atlanta, and it's interesting. So we really have to take that extra step to make sure that A, we're keeping the amazing people that we have, and B, that we're setting an example and spreading the word that we're a worthwhile entity for new people to come in and trust us with the responsibilities of financially caring for their families and their own personal initiatives.
Beautifully said, Dobbin. Let's wrap it up there. Folks, if you want to hear more from Dobbin, it's Dobbin Buck on Instagram and wherever else. And then Dobbin, your company, it's GetUWired, GET, the letter U, Wired, WIRED. And Dobbin, real quick, what kind of projects does your company typically do for folks who are interested in working with a place that has this kind of culture?
Sure, absolutely. We're a full service web marketing agency. We work on both retainer programs and individual project based offerings, anything to do with marketing automation, with content creation, creativity, advanced programming. We have 14 full stack PHP programmers. And
Wow.
so we're helping lots of small business succeed. And if any of you are influencers out there, I have an influencer white label program that does onboarding, implementation, help desk, coaching for digital products for influencers that they're selling out to their ecosystem. So I have a lot of work going on that. So anything to do with marketing, creativity, or coding, or delivering digital products, love to have a conversation with you. I'm the only Dobbin Buck, I think, in the world that I've known, so I'm easy to find on Facebook, on Instagram, as mentioned, and GetUWired, GET, the letter UWIRED.com is our website. Feel free to reach out to my team or reach out to me directly through that. And it's been an honor, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on Redbeard Radio.